Hey guys, what's going on? This is Sean. Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm on the road and I obviously can't show my face because I'm on the road, right? But I could almost guarantee you that today you're gonna like the content. Also, if I cough, sniffle, or sneeze, please forgive me, as I am sick for like 3 weeks. Thank you guys for all the remedies and everything. Just your basic cold. I'm going to take you guys' suggestions and get as much of this done as possible. But, sorry, I'm not going to skip out on today's discussion. It's important. But please work with me through the coughing and the pauses and the no background. This is one of those outrageous videos. What's up, TV? What's up, FCJ9? Welcome in to the channel. Crazy case law out of the state of California. This is case law from the Ninth Circuit Court. Ninth Circuit. That happened about 9 days ago. No, wait, I'm sorry. 14 days ago. Give me 1 second. There was an event that happened in March of 2022 involving San Jose PD. Now, if you are not familiar with the Ninth Circuit basically is in charge, hears cases, federal cases from all of the western seaboard states. I think, oh my goodness, I think Arizona is part of the Ninth Circuit, if I'm not mistaken. I think Las Vegas might be part of the Ninth Circuit, if I'm not mistaken. I really don't know right now as I'm traveling on the road, but I can assure you that the western seaboard states of the United States of America are governed by the 9th District. Now, whatever decisions that the 9th District come up with is basically, if it's a published decision, which most of them or many of them are, it becomes case law. And it binds on all the federal courts in your area. And also, a lot of the, I'm sorry guys, a lot of the, like, let's just say Arizona, and again, I could have sworn that Arizona is part of the 9th District. If there's a federal case in Arizona that involves a shooting situation involving a law enforcement officer, and this does pertain to security, and I'll get to that in a minute, the 9th Circuit will hear. I mean, they have so much jurisdiction. And even if you're probably saying, hey, you know what? I'm in Florida. I'm in Minnesota. That's not our circuit. Well, I don't know if you guys are aware, but these courts and other circuits do cite cases that are outside their jurisdiction. Now, is the case binding, or is the decision binding in the 9th District with all the other districts? No, it's not binding. But when there's a case decision that needs to be heard, case law from other states do get discussed, and sometimes there's a judgment against a party based on what another state's doing. Okay, so let me give you some context here, and I'll try my best. This is the Green versus McNamara decision. MC Monero. We'll just call it the Green decision. And basically what you have is like some type of altercation. I don't know if this is a bar. I don't know if this was a taqueria that served alcohol. But what we do have is we have a bunch of people getting out of control, and there's a huge fight. Fist fight. You got multiple parties rolling around the ground fighting, and then you have a private security guard that's on scene, and he basically just says, screw this, like, I'm backing off. This is getting wild. You see, all of a sudden, on camera, we see a gun, right? One of the parties starts to produce a gun, and we do have somebody who was a very successful college football player, and I think his last name is Green, if I'm not mistaken. Wait a minute, yeah, I think it's Green. And what he does is he disarms this person. Okay, now before that, there was a shooting situation, right? There's multiple shots being fired, and this brave football player went hands-on and disarmed this person. Now, what he did, it was very questionable after that. He went outside because, San Jose PD, they were responding to a call of an active shooter. That was a call for service. Active shooter at the taqueria. So adrenaline's pumping, and all of a sudden you have Mr. Green, if I'm not mistaken, coming out of the bar, out of the taqueria, with a gun in his hand, where the gun is pointed up. Police, San Jose PD tells him to drop the gun, and it looks like he just kept it in the air. Multiple shots are fired from one officer. He drops Mr. Green. They take him into custody, and they find out that Mr. Green was the hero. Okay, now, if you're questioning me as to why I'm titling this as an active shooter situation, and why am I mentioning that California police cannot shoot an active shooter that has his weapon presented up? If you're asking me why I'm doing that, it's because of the legal arguments that were made during the case. Now, there's a lot to this. Later on, I found out that apparently, I think it was McNamara, again, after the shooting, he started sending text messages back and forth to other people, probably people that he thought he trusted, and he used the N-word. Now, McNamara is white, and I think Green is he was a young black male, or he is still. He survived, right? And he was using the N-word, and he was talking about gay men in a derogatory way, according to other people. And it looked like department-wise, possibly he was cleared. However, there's something called Senate Bill 2 that became law a couple years ago in California. If you are a law enforcement officer and you publish basically racist remarks, if you show others that you are engaged in racist comments, you can get fired for that. You can get fired for that, and you can get decommissioned. So it looks like that's what happened. Is McNamara was fired. Now, I could be mixing up the names. I'm sorry in advance if I'm doing that, but I am on the road. Was there discussions about racism or why he was fired? All that stuff, guys, that wasn't even introduced into the courtroom. Now, everything that I discussed, there's body camera footage. The case law that's published, you'll find it in the link in the description box below. And then I point out what the legal arguments are. So you could click on all this stuff and fact verify. Absolutely, you can. Now, what happened, again, there's nothing related to the racist remarks. There's nothing related to him being fired. There's only discussion about a possible active shooter situation, which is how it's described, and then Green putting his hands up with the gun, and allegedly he's not giving up, or he's not putting the gun down. Let me talk about the psychology of that in a minute, but that's all you have. So, the legal argument is kind of hey, are you able to shoot somebody, even if you think that they were involved in an active shooter situation, if they have their hands up with a gun in their hand? All this racism stuff, that wasn't even mentioned. If you truly believe that he should be... Oh, by the way, so McNamara, his qualified immunity was stripped away. So yes, he gets individually sued. So for you guys that are complaining about qualified immunity, cops shouldn't have it. This rarely happens. You have a case from 14 days ago where McNamara lost his qualified immunity. They can go after his personal assets now. So that's that's that. Now, what the court decided was that in order to take that person's life, that person has to give a verbal threat of harm. Okay, so after an active shooter situation, he has a gun up. Hey, I'm gonna effing kill you guys or something like that, to that effect. That's one of the circumstances. Another circumstance is they make a furtive movement. Okay, so you have their hands up, they're compliant, and also they make a furtive movement. And then also they make a harrowing gesture. Harrowing referring to they're moving into a position to shoot you. I would think that that's a harrowing gesture. If those three things are not there, you can't shoot a person who even has a gun in their hand. Now, why would you want to take out an active shooter? Now, once again, we got to be clear that Green was not an active shooter. However, the reasonable officer in McNamara's shoes would believe that there's an active shooter situation. That's the way that it was called in. You have a guy coming out with a gun, although he's giving up. His hands are above his head. So what you have to do is apply that to an active shooter situation in case, just in case you get involved in it. Now, if you're in security, keep listening. Keep listening. Okay, so why would you want to take down an active shooter if he gives up with his hands up? Well, first off, you could be faking giving up. Okay, and number two, can you go from an I give up position with your hands up to getting shots on target really fast? Yes, you can. When I went through Texas State University, the alert program for instructors, excuse me, I had a scenario like that where the suspect, I think the gun was like to the bottom. I don't know if it was to the top of his head, like raised up, or in a down position, but he was able to turn around like 90 degrees and get me right on the finger. And I will feel that hit forever. That was with the Sims round, that was a hard hit right on the trigger finger, guys. And where is my trigger finger positioned when I'm trying to take him out? Well, it's right in front of my face. So in real life, that bullet would have hit my finger and it would have got me right between the eyes or right in the face. And you're talking about, probably a 61-year-old or 60-year-old or 59-year-old instructor who is maybe slower. I mean, he might be slower than others, but he's a fast shot. I mean, he got me really good. But you can go from that position. Now, something else that I'm really concerned about with the 9th District, and this is where you guys have to listen or chime in, really listen, is the justices use their personal judgment on how to handle an active shooter situation, how to take a suspect into custody. And I was having a discussion with some of the guys that have been in law enforcement for some time, and they were shocked at the analysis that these justices gave in front of camera. If you go to my link in the description box below, you could see the 9th Circuit argument, and you could see, I don't know if it's a district attorney or I don't know who it is, but it's the attorney that's arguing for McNamara. And she's actually, you could tell she's frustrated, and she's kind of shocked on the responses of these justices. These justices probably have never been in a gunfight, never been in a life and death situation, probably never been in reality-based training, probably never been in the range, yet they are interjecting their like experiences that they don't have. Watch it, guys, and you're gonna, if you're working armed security or you're in law enforcement, you're gonna think otherwise of remaining in the job, because the whole case had nothing to do with racism. It had all to do with those three things that the suspect has to do in order for you to shoot somebody who has their gun presented in the air. And I'll say that again. Number one, a verbal threat to do harm. Obviously, that is after an active attack situation, right? Verbal threats, we know that in our training, you can't just, shoot somebody because they give you a verbal threat. There has to be more. And then number two is a harrowing gesture. And then number three is furtive movement. Okay, those. If you don't have either of those three, you could potentially lose your immunity if you have any qualified immunity. Now, something else that justices brought up was none of the other officers fired. I'll say that again. The justices were concerned because none of the other officers fired. Only one officer fired. And the justices were convinced, basically, that if other officers were fired, then they would all, basically the shooting would be more justified, or it would be justified, which is a crazy analysis. In alert training and in active shooter training, by the way, we got training coming up on Thursday and Friday of this week, Santee, California. I have no idea if there's any slots left. The calendar was kind of messed last time I looked at it, but if you're interested, let me know. Send me an email. If you know me, send me a text or something like that. We have to talk about this case. I just found out about this case today. Yes, today. This was 14 days ago that it was decided, but I barely found out about it. I think a lot of law enforcement officers don't even know about this case. Private security, probably not. This is so scary if you're in law enforcement or security. Okay? Now, in our trainings, we teach you to understand and to acknowledge your arc of fire, which is basically know your target, know what is beyond. And we don't take shots when we are in back of partners. What happens is, in a life and death situation, your partners get scared, they panic, they try to get out of the line of fire sometimes, and they enter your arc of fire. So what we try to do, at least what we teach in alert, is we teach you to get as shoulder to shoulder as possible. So in that circumstance, if you were going to take a shot, you would get online with the officer, the number one officer, which was McNamara. Okay, he was the one that was up the stairs and the closest to this person who they thought was the shooter. You get online with them. Even when you take somebody out at gunpoint, you get online with the other guys. That way, you have more discipline in your arc of fire. And that I didn't see that there. And let me ask you this: what officer do you think had the most information about the incident? Who had the most information? Well, it was McNamara. He was all the way in the front. Again, watch the body cam, watch the footage. When you have the most information, you can make a better decision. I'm not saying that this is a good decision. I'm not saying it's a bad decision. After the fact, yeah, it was a bad decision, because this football player, which is Green, was in fact a hero. And if he's watching, you did an awesome job. However, sometimes you got to think, how does it look like to arriving officers on scene? And this is something we're going to discuss on Thursday and Friday, guys, of our active shooter training, which is post-certified. We're going to talk about how identifying yourself as a first responder is super important. How identifying yourself as a good guy is important. Okay? I think, honestly, in that predicament, the better option is to, it's to secure that pistol. Secure the pistol. If you don't know what you're doing, just put it in your pants, and keep your hands as high as possible. Now, you might be saying, Sean, that's stupid. Now you're gonna look like the bad guy if you do that. Okay, well, the best option, if you know what you're doing, is to remove the gun, take the magazine out, lock the slide to the rear, ensuring that there's an empty chamber. And if there's not, well, you just rack the slide to the rear if it's a semi-automatic pistol. Right, it's a revolver. Open up the cylinder, clear everything out. Okay, the gun is clear. Put it wherever you want. Just make sure the ammunition is in here. There's so many things to do. Obviously, us professionals, we're more familiar with firearms. and we could secure it in a more formal way. And then honestly, I mean, depending on the weapon, I'd probably maybe just take the slide off. Now, not everybody has as much training as you. They may not know how to take off the slide. But what I don't want you guys to do is have a gun in your hand when law enforcement rolls up. It doesn't matter if it's in the air. It doesn't matter if it's on the, below you. That's the worst thing I think you can do, is have that gun in your hand. And again, this is something that we're going to discuss during our active shooter training on Thursday and Friday. Now, what does this have to do with security? Well, do you think that the Ninth Circuit is not going to, like when they get to your case, or if you ever have a case, you think that they're not going to interject their personal beliefs into your case like they did with the San Jose officer? They will. They absolutely will. And it's not fair. But look, in security, what's going to happen is you're going to get a use of force expert that is going to testify maybe against you and basically tell you that you shouldn't have taken the shot. Why is that? Well, because there's established case law. Green versus McNamara, Ninth Circuit. That's one of the reasons. Now, as trainers, if you're a post-certified instructor, firearm instructor, you need to know this case. You need to know this case because the student's going to bring it up and they're going to ask you, how do you deal with a Green versus McNamara situation? What do you do? Can't shoot him unless and I'll go through the list again. Unless he makes a furtive movement, unless he makes a harrowing gesture, or unless he made a verbal threat that he was going to kill you or put an end to your life, something to that effect. Obviously, that verbal threat has to be accompanied with an active shooter situation. Okay, you need those three factors. The court also talk about if somebody shows that they're going to surrender, you obviously can't do that. You can't shoot them, which is obvious, but man, this does not look good, you guys. So, okay, what if this guy, Green, comes out of this establishment with the gun in his hand? You tell him, put the gun down, and he just keeps walking towards you, but the gun is still up. Are you able to take the shot? According to the Green versus McNamara decision, I don't even want to say anything on camera. I don't want to say anything on camera about this decision right now until I have a chance to digest all this information and basically let you guys know where I stand here when my mind is more clear. Commands, your commands are going to have to change. This has an effect on everybody, right? Because if you're in security, the argument from the other party is going to be, this is the standards, and you fail to meet them. And then if you're in security, you're saying, well, I don't meet police standards. No, you don't have to meet police standards. But that use of force expert, they're going to come from a law enforcement background. You are not going to get a security, an expert that's been a security guard their whole life. You're not gonna get that type of expert, you guys. And if they exist, I'll say this, that they probably in most cases they probably haven't been to court as much as a law enforcement officer. If you're a law enforcement officer, you've been to court a lot. Private security, some of you probably been to court a lot, but not as much as a law enforcement officer. Now, obviously, depending on the type of law enforcement that you do. But again, the party against you, they're going to bring the law enforcement expert. You're going to be searching for that security expert that don't exist. And what you might get is a law enforcement expert who doesn't have a lot of experience with private security. Now, it's a tough call. So my suggestion, it's not legal advice or professional advice, is you give this person an order to stop. Hey, private security, stop. Do not move. If you move, I will shoot. So once again, my suggestion to you, the command should be stop private security or stop armed security. Do not move. If you're in a predominantly Spanish-speaking neighborhood, try to say in Spanish if you can. And then give them that warning. If you make any sudden movement, then I might have to shoot you or something to that effect. Or I'll shoot you. And that can be an argument in itself on that specific language. But you did give them a feasible warning. That warning was reasonable. Do not move. And then from there, you can give commands. You can wait until there's backup, but you can buy time just like that. As for the command of put the gun down, my question to you guys is this. Okay, can you put the gun down and face? Can you have somebody put the gun down and then face you, right? Let's just say they have their gun in the air and you tell them to put the gun down, right? So if they put the gun down, okay, look at the screen. Okay, the gun's up like this. Put the gun down. Okay, yeah, they're gonna put it down right in your direction. It don't make any sense. So I would probably say stop, armed security, do not move. If you make any movements, I might possibly have to shoot you. Something like that. Okay, have them turn around, and then from there you can get them into various positions. But drop the gun. Again, I don't like drop the gun because first off, if it's a SIG, I'm just kidding, guys. Look, I'm gonna talk about my own gun, staccato. Okay, if it's a staccato, that's not an HD version. Drop the gun. Okay, I'm gonna drop the gun. When I drop the gun, it's not drop safe. So now my gun just went off, and you thought that I just shot you, and then I just took your life. So we have to work on the commands. We absolutely have to work on the commands. But guys, this is a decision that you need to be aware of. I'll probably do some follow-up videos. I will definitely talk about different techniques in the active shooter training class. I want you guys to fact check what I say. Go through all of the documents, go through the videos I have by checking out the description box below. Let me just go through the comments, make sure I didn't forget anybody. Mike from the Professional Security Journals here. Anton. Hey, what's up, Anton? Yeah, California. You went from Russia to Louisiana to California. Welcome. Social Security Specialist. See here. Welcome, sir. FCJ9 says this is all assuming the particular security officer or LEO is behind cover. It's a tough situation. It is no, you're right. It's an absolute tough decision to make. Absolutely. Ideally, we want to make these commands and behind cover, but this police officer did what he was trained to do, to be honest with you guys. If I was an attorney, I would testify. Now, the question, believe it or not, California police officers, most of them don't go through active shooter training. It's not a requirement. And the governor, Newsom, and the California Democratic legislator has defunded almost completely a lot of the funds, the post-plan reversible funds that went to active shooter training. They all got dumped into like DEI instructor classes. I tell you that because I took one of those classes, and it was Plan 1 reimbursable. Basically means that post pays everything. They basically pay like the wages of backfill, overtime, lodging, miles, lunch, they pay for everything. We typically saw that with active shooter training, but it's 360 it's a 180 flip now. Excuse me. But that officer, let's just say if he was trained by alert, we don't go for cover. Priority life scale, puts innocent people first. So you go in there. You go in there dynamically. And it looked like this San Jose officer was taking the lead. He was taking the lead, and he was about to just go in there. You're not doing limited penetration. You're not standing behind cover while everybody comes out. Like, you're going in there and stopping this person. And then Social Security Specialist is here. All right, guys, that's all I have. Looking forward to the comments, dialogue, fact check everything that I'm doing today. All right, bye.